Stop scrolling. Look at your screen right now. I'm about to show you 4 crowns, 4 symbols of authority that Machiavelli observed in Renaissance courts across Italy. Each crown represents a different form of rulership, a different strategy for maintaining power, a different method of keeping your throne when everyone wants to take it. Crown 1. The Diamond Crown. Brilliant, visible, radiating wealth and absolute authority. Crown 2. The Thorned Crown. Painful to wear, earned through suffering, respected through sacrifice. Crown 3. The Iron Crown. Heavy, brutal, forged in war and maintained through strength. Crown 4. The Invisible Crown. No physical symbol at all, authority that exists without announcement. Choose one crown. Right now. Don't think about which sounds most impressive. Your instinct is revealing how you rule, how you maintain authority, how you prevent rebellion. Comment your choice. 1, 2, 3, or 4. Do it before I expose what it means, because what I'm about to reveal will change how you see every power structure you've ever been part of. In year 1512, Niccolò Machiavelli watched the Medici family return to Florence after 18 years of exile. The Republican government collapsed in days. The institutions Machiavelli had served for 14 years evaporated overnight. And Machiavelli realized something that most political observers missed. The Medici never wore literal crowns. Florence was a republic. There were no kings, no official monarchs. But the Medici ruled anyway. How? Because they understood what Machiavelli would later code into the prince. Authority isn't about the crown you wear. It's about the type of authority people accept. Some rulers maintain power through spectacular display, the diamond strategy. Some maintain power through demonstrated sacrifice, the thorned strategy. Some maintain power through intimidating capability, the iron strategy. Some maintain power through structural necessity, the invisible strategy. Machiavelli spent the next year in exile studying these 4 crown archetypes. Every successful ruler, every stable regime, every leader who kept their position, they all wore one of these 4 crowns. Not literally, symbolically, strategically. Today, I'm decoding his crown system for you. Comment your crown choice now. Because once you understand which crown you instinctively reach for, you'll see why some people follow you and why others plot your removal. Let me take you to Milan, year 1450. The Visconti dynasty had just collapsed. Duke Filippo Maria Visconti died without a male heir. Milan, one of the richest and most powerful city-states in Italy, had no ruler. The Milanese nobles established a republic. They called it the Ambrosian Republic. They believed they could govern collectively without a single leader. It lasted 3 years. Why? Because nobody agreed on who held authority. Every decision required consensus. Every faction blocked every other faction. The government paralyzed itself through equality. Francesco Sforza watched this chaos from outside the city walls. He was a condottiero, a mercenary commander with an army but no territory. Sforza understood something the Milanese Republicans didn't. Authority requires a crown, not necessarily a physical crown, but a recognized symbol of who makes final decisions. In 1450, Sforza laid siege to Milan. He starved the city. He cut off all supplies. He waited. And when Milan finally surrendered, he didn't ask permission to rule. He didn't campaign for election. He didn't negotiate a governing council. He declared himself duke. He chose the Iron Crown, authority through undeniable military strength. The crown forged in warfare and maintained through the constant demonstration of force. The Milanese accepted it immediately. not because they wanted a military dictator, but because 3 years of leaderless chaos had taught them that collective authority equals no authority. Someone had to wear the crown. Sforza wore it. The question was settled. Machiavelli studied this case extensively in The Prince. In Chapter 1, he classifies principalities by how they're acquired. All states, all powers that have held and hold rule over men have been and are either republics or principalities. But then, critically, he explains that principalities come in different forms, not by legal structure, but by the type of authority the ruler embodies. This is the crown system, not the title you hold, the authority type you represent. Some rulers are accepted because they display wealth and power, the diamond crown. Some are accepted because they've suffered for their people, the Thorned Crown. Some are accepted because they demonstrate overwhelming capability, the Iron Crown. Some are accepted because they're structurally necessary to the system, the Invisible Crown. Your instinctive crown choice at the start of this video revealed which authority type you naturally embody. Now let me decode what that means. We'll analyze each crown, each rulership style, each method of maintaining power, each fatal vulnerability. If you chose Crown 1, focus on the first section. If you chose 2, 3, or 4, watch all of them. Because understanding all 4 crown types means you can identify which crown your rivals wear and how to topple it. Let's begin with the first archetype, Crown 1, the Diamond Crown. If you chose the Diamond Crown, you rule through spectacular authority. You don't maintain power through force. You don't earn respect through sacrifice. You don't build structural necessity. You radiate dominance. Your instinct when maintaining authority is display. Wealth, symbols, ceremonies, anything that makes your position visible, impressive, and undeniable. This isn't vanity. It's strategic psychology. Because humans instinctively follow displays of power. We evolved to recognize status signals. When someone radiates authority through symbols of wealth and success, our subconscious accepts their dominance before our conscious mind evaluates their competence. Machiavelli understood Diamond Crown strategy when he wrote in Chapter 21 of The Prince. Nothing makes a prince so much esteemed as great enterprises and setting a fine example. Translation: authority is theater. The ruler who stages the most impressive performance wins the audience's loyalty. Lorenzo de' Medici, Lorenzo the Magnificent, was the supreme Diamond Crown strategist. Lorenzo never held official power in Florence. He was never elected to permanent office. He never commanded an army. He never enacted laws in his own name. But he ruled Florence for 23 years. How? Through a magnificent display. Lorenzo hosted the most spectacular festivals in Italy. He commissioned art from Botticelli, Leonardo, and Michelangelo. He held philosophical salons at the Platonic Academy. He wore clothing that cost more than most Florentines earned in a lifetime. Every public appearance was theater. Every gesture communicated, I am magnificent, I am powerful, I am the sun around which Florence orbits. And it worked. Florentines accepted Lorenzo's rule not because of legal authority, but because his magnificence made him the obvious center of power. When you're the most brilliant thing in the room, people assume you're also the most important thing in the room. In modern terms, you're the CEO with the corner office and the luxury car and the expensive suits. The leader who flies first class and stays in 5-star hotels, even when the company budget is tight. The executive whose lifestyle communicates success so loudly that questioning their authority feels absurd. You maintain power through perception. As long as you appear dominant, you are dominant. Your strength is psychological momentum. Diamond Crown rulers create self-fulfilling prophecies. People treat you like the leader, which gives you actual power, which allows you to stage more impressive displays, which reinforces your position. But here's the fatal flaw Machiavelli identified in the Diamond Crown archetype. Spectacular authority requires constant spectacle. The moment the display stops, the authority evaporates. Lorenzo de' Medici died in 1492. His son Piero inherited the Diamond Crown strategy. Same magnificent displays, same expensive festivals, same philosophical patronage. But in 1494, King Charles VIII of France invaded Italy with a massive army. Piero tried to negotiate. He offered Florence's fortresses to the French in exchange for peace. The moment Piero showed weakness, the moment the spectacle of Medici magnificence couldn't solve the military crisis, Florentine citizens expelled him from the city. Within days, the Medici were in exile, their palaces looted, their art confiscated, their diamond crown shattered. Why? Because their authority was always theatrical. When the theater couldn't handle real warfare, the audience stopped believing the performance. Louis XVI of France made the same mistake 3 centuries later. Louis maintained his crown through spectacular display. Versailles, elaborate ceremonies, expensive hunts, magnificent balls. But when France faced bankruptcy and famine in 1789, the spectacle became grotesque. The people stopped seeing magnificence and started seeing waste. The Diamond Crown became a target. Within 4 years, Louis was executed and the monarchy was destroyed. If you are a Diamond Crown ruler, your survival depends on converting spectacle into substance. You cannot rule through display forever. Eventually, you must demonstrate actual capability, actual results, actual value beyond the performance. The most dangerous Diamond Crown strategists are the ones who use spectacular display to attract attention, and then quietly build real power structures while everyone is watching the show. Machiavelli's advice for Diamond Crown rulers appears in Chapter 21. A prince ought also to show himself a patron of ability and to honor the proficient in every art. Translation: use magnificence to attract talent, then let that talent build the systems that sustain your rule when the spectacle inevitably fades. Display gets you the crown, substance keeps it. If you chose Crown 1, if you instinctively gravitated toward spectacular authority, toward visible dominance, toward ruling through magnificent display, then comment below, "I wear the Diamond Crown." Claim your crown. Because understanding that you rule through spectacle means you can build foundations beneath the performance before it collapses. Crown 2. The Thorned Crown. If you chose the Thorned Crown, you rule through earned suffering. You don't maintain power through display. You don't demonstrate overwhelming force. You don't build invisible systems. You sacrifice. Your instinct when maintaining authority is to show that you've paid a higher price than anyone else, that you've endured more pain, that you've earned your position through suffering that others refused to bear. This is the crown of martyrs, of leaders who rule through moral authority rather than legal authority. Machiavelli never explicitly endorsed the Thorned Crown strategy because it contradicts his core philosophy that rulers should be feared rather than loved. But he understood it, and he documented it when analyzing religious and moral leaders who maintained power without armies. In Chapter 11 of The Prince, discussing ecclesiastical principalities, these principalities alone are secure and happy, but they are sustained by ancient religious institutions which have become so powerful that they keep their princes in power however they proceed and live. Translation: Some rulers maintain authority through perceived moral superiority and demonstrated sacrifice. Their crown is thorned, painful to wear, but impossible to challenge without appearing immoral yourself. Girolamo Savonarola ruled Florence through the Thorned Crown strategy from 1494 to 1498. Savonarola wasn't elected. He held no official government position. He commanded no army. He controlled no wealth, but he ruled Florence through his sermons. How? By living in complete poverty while preaching against corruption, by fasting while Florence feasted, by wearing simple robes while the Medici wore silk. His authority came from visible sacrifice. Every sermon reminded Florentines, I suffer for you. I reject wealth. I reject comfort. I reject everything except moral truth. And because Savonarola suffered visibly while preaching sacrifice, his moral authority became unchallengeable. Criticizing him meant admitting you weren't willing to suffer as he did. The Thorned Crown. For 4 years, it worked perfectly. Savonarola convinced Florence to burn their luxury goods in the bonfire of the vanities, to expel the Medici family, to establish a more moral republic. But then Pope Alexander VI, who wore a very different crown, excommunicated him. And without the institutional backing of the Church, Savonarola's moral authority couldn't sustain his rule. In 1498, he was arrested, tortured, hanged, and burned. The Thorned Crown protected him from internal challenges, but it provided no defense against external power that didn't accept his moral framework. In modern terms, you're the founder who takes no salary while employees get paid, the CEO who flies economy while the team flies business, the leader who works longer hours than anyone else and makes sure everyone knows it. You maintain authority through demonstrated sacrifice. People follow you because you've earned it through suffering they respect. Your strength is moral legitimacy. Thorned Crown rulers are nearly impossible to remove through internal conspiracy because removing them requires admitting you're less committed, less sacrificial, less worthy. But here's the fatal flaw Machiavelli identified in the Thorned Crown archetype. Moral authority only works within moral frameworks. The moment you face an enemy who doesn't accept your moral system, your crown becomes irrelevant. Savonarola's suffering meant nothing to Pope Alexander VI, a man who'd bribed his way to the papacy and lived in open corruption. Alexander didn't respect moral authority, so Savonarola's Thorned Crown provided no protection. Thomas More made the same mistake in England. More was Lord Chancellor under King Henry VIII. He wore the Thorned Crown, known for his moral integrity, his simple lifestyle, his theological scholarship. When Henry wanted to divorce Catherine of Aragon and break with Rome, More opposed him on moral grounds. More's moral authority was unquestionable. His sacrifice was evident. His Thorned Crown gave him credibility throughout Europe. But Henry didn't care about moral authority. He cared about power. And in 1535, More was executed for treason. The Thorned Crown couldn't stop the axe. If you are a Thorned Crown ruler, your survival depends on building practical power alongside moral authority. You cannot rule through sacrifice alone. Eventually, you must convert moral legitimacy into institutional control or military capability. The most dangerous Thorned Crown strategists are the ones who suffer visibly while quietly building enforcement mechanisms that protect their position when moral authority isn't enough. Machiavelli's warning to moral rulers appears in Chapter 15. How one lives is so far distant from how one ought to live, that he who neglects what is done for what ought to be done sooner affects his ruin than his preservation. Translation: Moral authority is powerful, but it's not sufficient. Combine the Thorned Crown with practical defenses, or die righteously, but die nonetheless. If you chose Crown 2, if you instinctively gravitated toward earned authority, toward demonstrating sacrifice, toward ruling through visible suffering, then comment below, "I wear the Thorned Crown." Claim your crown. Because understanding that you rule through sacrifice means you can build protection before martyrdom becomes mandatory. Crown 3. The Iron Crown. If you chose the Iron Crown, you rule through demonstrated capability. You don't maintain power through spectacle. You don't earn respect through sacrifice. You don't build invisible necessity. You prove yourself through results. Your instinct when maintaining authority is competence, performance, delivering outcomes that others cannot deliver. Being the person who solves problems that would destroy lesser leaders. This is the crown of warriors and technocrats. Leaders who rule because they're genuinely better at the job than anyone else. Machiavelli respected the Iron Crown more than any other authority type because it's based on virtù, capability, excellence, effectiveness. In Chapter 6 of The Prince, let no one wonder if, in speaking of entirely new principalities, I adduce the greatest examples, because men almost always walk in paths beaten by others and follow by imitation their deeds, yet being unable to keep entirely to the ways of others or attain to the power of those they imitate. A wise man ought always to follow the paths beaten by great men and to imitate those who have been supreme. Translation: the Iron Crown is earned through being supreme at what you do, not appearing supreme, being supreme. Cesare Borgia wore the Iron Crown. When Cesare needed to pacify the Romagna region in 1501, he didn't do it through magnificent displays like Lorenzo de' Medici. He didn't do it through moral preaching like Savonarola. He did it through ruthless military effectiveness. Cesare conquered the Romagna in months. He eliminated conspiracies before they formed. He fortified cities. He reorganized governments. He executed problems. His authority came from demonstrated capability. Every lord who considered rebelling looked at Cesare's track record and concluded, "This man wins. Opposing him equals death." The Iron Crown. Machiavelli witnessed this personally as Florence's diplomatic envoy to Borgia's court. He wrote detailed dispatches describing Cesare's methods, and he concluded that Cesare's authority was the most stable form because it was based on results, not perception. In modern terms, you're the executive who consistently delivers impossible projects. The military commander with a perfect operational record. The surgeon with the highest success rate. The engineer whose systems never fail. You maintain authority through competence. People follow you because you're genuinely better than the alternatives. Your strength is objective legitimacy. Iron Crown rulers can't be removed through politics or gossip because their capability is measurable. Results don't lie. But here's the fatal flaw Machiavelli identified in the Iron Crown archetype. Capability without political protection is vulnerable to envy. Cesare Borgia conquered the Romagna. He secured the region. He demonstrated supreme military and administrative capability. But in 1503, his father, Pope Alexander VI, died unexpectedly. And Cesare, weakened by illness, couldn't move fast enough to secure his position politically. Within months, Julius II became pope. Julius hated the Borgias, and he didn't care that Cesare was militarily capable. Julius had institutional authority, the papal throne, and he used it to destroy Cesare politically. Cesare's Iron Crown couldn't protect him from institutional power wielded by someone who resented his capability. By 1507, Cesare was dead, killed in a minor skirmish in Spain, the most capable military commander of his generation, reduced to a mercenary fighting for a provincial lord. Why? Because the Iron Crown makes you excellent, but excellence creates envy, and envy creates enemies who will destroy you the moment your capability falters. Napoleon Bonaparte made the same mistake on a grander scale. Napoleon wore the Iron Crown throughout his career. He was genuinely the most capable military commander in Europe. His battlefield victories were objective. His administrative reforms were measurably effective. But every victory made more enemies. Every demonstration of capability created more resentment. Every success proved to other European powers that Napoleon had to be destroyed. In 1815, Wellington and Blücher defeated Napoleon at Waterloo, not because they were more capable, but because they formed a coalition specifically designed to overcome his individual excellence. The Iron Crown makes you supreme, but supremacy creates unified opposition. If you are an Iron Crown ruler, your survival depends on building political alliances that protect your position when your capability inevitably reaches its limits. You cannot rule through competence alone. Eventually, you must convert excellence into institutional protection. The most dangerous Iron Crown strategists are the ones who demonstrate supreme capability while quietly building political networks that protect them when results aren't enough. Machiavelli's advice for capable rulers appears in Chapter 19. A wise prince ought to adopt such a course that his citizens will always, in every sort and kind of circumstance, have need of the state and of him, and then they will always prove faithful. Translation: make your capability structurally necessary. Don't just be excellent. Be the only person who can deliver the results the system requires. Competence gets you the crown. Political necessity keeps it. If you chose Crown 3, if you instinctively gravitated toward earned authority through results, toward demonstrating capability, toward ruling through excellence, then comment below, "I wear the Iron Crown." Claim your crown. Because understanding that you rule through competence means you can build political defenses before envy destroys excellence. Crown 4. The Invisible Crown. If you chose the Invisible Crown, you rule through structural necessity. You don't maintain power through display. You don't earn respect through sacrifice. You don't prove yourself through capability. You embed yourself into the system until removing you means destroying the system itself. Your instinct when maintaining authority is invisibility. You don't want the visible crown. You want to be the person who controls whoever wears it. This is the crown of advisors, bureaucrats, and gray eminences, leaders who rule without ruling, power without the throne. Machiavelli understood the invisible crown strategy because he tried to practice it throughout his career. In Chapter 22 of The Prince, discussing the importance of ministers, the first opinion which one forms of a prince and of his understanding is by observing the men he has around him. When they are capable and faithful, he may always be considered wise, because he has known how to recognize the capable and to keep them faithful. But read between the lines, Machiavelli is writing instructions for becoming the capable, faithful minister whose removal would prove the prince's stupidity. That's invisible crown strategy. Make yourself so structurally necessary that you control the system while someone else wears the visible crown. Cardinal Richelieu perfected the invisible crown. Richelieu served as chief minister to King Louis XIII of France for 18 years, from 1624 to 1642. Officially, Louis was the king. He wore the visible diamond crown. He made royal proclamations. He received foreign ambassadors. But Richelieu ruled. How? By making himself structurally indispensable. Richelieu didn't just advise the king. He created bureaucratic systems that only he understood. He developed intelligence networks that reported only to him. He established financial mechanisms that required his personal authorization. Every major government function ran through Richelieu, not through the king. And when enemies tried to remove Richelieu, and many tried, they discovered that removing him meant dismantling the entire French government. The invisible crown protected him better than any army because his authority wasn't personal. It was systemic. In modern terms, you're the executive assistant who controls the CEO's calendar and information flow. The IT administrator who's the only person who understands the critical systems. The middle manager who's built relationships with every department, such that bypassing you creates organizational chaos. You maintain authority through necessity. People follow you not because you're impressive or capable, but because the system stops functioning without you. Your strength is immunity to conventional power struggles. Invisible crown rulers can't be removed through traditional means because their authority is embedded in processes, not positions. But here's the fatal flaw Machiavelli identified in the invisible crown archetype. Structural necessity only works while the structure survives. Richelieu ruled France for 18 years through the invisible crown. But the moment Louis XIII died in 1643, Richelieu's structural authority collapsed. Actually, Richelieu died 5 months before Louis. But the point remains. His power was entirely dependent on the existing system. When the system changed, new king, new advisors, new factions, his embedded control became irrelevant. All his bureaucratic mechanisms, all his intelligence networks, all his structural necessity, gone. Because he'd never built a visible crown to fall back on. He'd never created public authority or institutional legitimacy separate from his personal relationship with Louis XIII. Thomas Cromwell made the same mistake in England. Cromwell served as chief minister to Henry VIII for a decade. He restructured the English government. He dissolved the monasteries. He created administrative systems that gave him control over every aspect of royal policy. The invisible crown. Structural necessity. Indispensable bureaucratic control. Until Henry decided he was too powerful. In 1540, Henry turned against Cromwell, and within weeks, Cromwell was arrested and executed. No trial, no defense, just elimination. Why? Because the invisible crown provides no protection when the person wearing the visible crown decides to destroy the system rather than continue sharing power. If you are an invisible crown ruler, your survival depends on building visible authority alongside structural necessity. You cannot remain invisible forever. Eventually, you must claim institutional legitimacy that protects your position even if your embedded systems are dismantled. The most dangerous invisible crown strategists are the ones who build structural necessity while quietly accumulating visible authority, so that when enemies try to remove them systemically, they discover the ruler has multiple crowns. Machiavelli's warning to invisible rulers appears in Chapter 7. He who has not first laid his foundations may be able with great ability to lay them afterwards, but they will be laid with trouble to the architect and danger to the building. Translation: structural control is powerful, but build visible foundations while you're embedded. Don't wait until enemies force you into the open before claiming authority everyone can see. If you chose Crown 4, if you instinctively gravitated toward structural necessity, toward embedded control, toward ruling without visible authority, then comment below. I wear the invisible crown. Claim your crown. Because understanding that you rule through necessity means you can build visibility before your invisibility becomes irrelevance. The crown overthrow cycle. You now know your Machiavellian crown, the diamond crown, the thorned crown, the iron crown, the invisible crown. But here's what Machiavelli coded into the prince without stating explicitly. Every crown has an overthrow strategy. The diamond crown falls to exposure, revealed that the spectacle is hollow and authority evaporates. The thorned crown falls to practical force. Suffering provides no defense against those who reject your moral framework. The iron crown falls to political envy. Excellence creates enemies who unite to destroy capability they can't match. The invisible crown falls to system change. Embedded control becomes irrelevant when the structure is replaced. This is the strategic cycle that governs all regime change. Why did Lorenzo de' Medici's sons lose Florence? Because they wore the diamond crown without substance. And when France invaded, the spectacle couldn't solve military reality. Why did Savonarola fall from power? Because he wore the thorned crown without practical defenses. And when the Pope moved against him, moral authority provided no protection. Why did Cesare Borgia lose the Romagna despite military supremacy? Because he wore the iron crown without political protection. And when his father died, his enemies used institutional authority to destroy his capability. Why did Richelieu's system collapse after his death? Because he wore the invisible crown without visible legitimacy. And when Louis XIV died, his embedded control evaporated with the regime change. Understanding your crown is step 1. Understanding your overthrow vulnerability is step 2. Defending against it is survival. If you wear the diamond crown, your authority is spectacular display. Your vulnerability is exposed hollowness. Your defense, build real capability beneath the performance. Make substance match spectacle. If you wear the thorned crown, your authority is moral sacrifice. Your vulnerability is practical force that rejects your framework. Your defense, build institutional or military power alongside moral legitimacy. If you wear the iron crown, your authority is demonstrated capability. Your vulnerability is political envy that creates unified opposition. Your defense, build alliances and institutional protection while maintaining excellence. If you wear the invisible crown, your authority is structural necessity. Your vulnerability is system replacement that makes you irrelevant. Your defense, build visible authority that survives structural change. Machiavelli watched every crown type fall throughout his career. He served diamond crown leaders whose spectacle collapsed under crisis. He documented thorned crown moralists destroyed by practical power. He analyzed iron crown commanders defeated by political coalitions. He advised invisible crown bureaucrats purged during regime change. Every crown can be toppled. Every authority type has a weakness. The question is, are you defending yours before your enemies exploit it? The final challenge. Comment your crown one more time. I wear the diamond crown. I wear the thorned crown. I wear the iron crown. I wear the invisible crown. Claim your crown. Because this isn't a leadership-style quiz. This is an authority diagnostic. Machiavelli wrote The Prince to teach rulers how to maintain power when everyone wants to take it. I'm decoding his crown system to teach you the same survival strategy. Like this video and subscribe to this channel. Because in the next video, I'm revealing the advanced technique Machiavelli never wrote down. How to wear multiple crowns simultaneously without contradiction. The diamond invisible hybrid that dazzles publicly while controlling structurally. The thorned iron combination that suffers visibly while demonstrating capability ruthlessly. The crown fluidity that made some Renaissance rulers untouchable while others fell to the first crisis. Machiavelli didn't just study crowns. He understood that the greatest rulers wear different crowns for different audiences. Visible to those who need spectacle, invisible to those who need structure, thorned to those who need sacrifice, iron to those who need results. And in the next video, I'll show you how to master that strategic flexibility. Until then, study your crown, identify your overthrow vulnerability, and remember, in the game of power, the crown you wear determines whether you rule for decades or fall within months. It is better to be feared than loved, if you cannot be both. But it is best to wear the crown that makes both fear and love irrelevant, because your authority becomes structural reality. Choose your crown wisely. I'll see you in the next revelation.